More fun to come. Let's see. Okay, well, I was going to say, did you know Encinitas was once essentially an island? But now you know because June mentioned it earlier. And if you think about it, it's surrounded by water. To the north, we have the Banaquitas Lagoon, which is fed by the San Marcos Creek. To the south, you've got the San Alejo Lagoon, fed by the Escondido Creek. Then you have the Escondido Creek itself, known by the locals as La Bajada. And then, of course, the Pacific Ocean on the left. That is essentially, water on three sides and an overflowing creek on the other is, consider it an island. And in fact, here is a picture of that creek, the Escondido Creek, La Bajada, during one of its many, many floods. In February of 1884, Encinitas became an island in a very real way. An entire year's worth of rain, about 13 inches, fell in just 2 weeks. Roads disappeared, bridges were underwater, and not just in Encinitas, but all the way down to San Diego. Even the railroad bridge was swamped. And during my research the last few months on this project at the Historical Society, I read 2 different stories about men that waded and swam through the water to bring a 50-pound bag of either grain or flour back to the community so they could basically survive. That's not a metaphor, that's an island. There's water every which way. People understood quickly something very basic. Without roads and bridges, merchants couldn't sell their goods, farmers couldn't move their crops, information couldn't travel, and the town couldn't grow. So public roads and bridges were built. This is it's 1991. Encinitas in 1991. So by shared investments and creating lasting connections. So it's interesting that roads made independence possible. So it's kind of another paradox, connecting to be independent. This is 1981, just before 5 years of Encinitas being incorporated. Because for many years, Encinitas wasn't an independent city. It was governed by the County of San Diego. And in 1986, residents voted to incorporate it, choosing local control instead of remote control, as the first mayor had described it. And this year, as we know, marks 40th anniversary. So the Historical Society reminds us that our roads don't just appear. They've evolved over centuries. Today, Encinitas has 3 main north-south roads. You've got El Camino Real, Highway 101, and Interstate 5. Each one came about at a different moment, for a different reason. And together they tell the story of how Encinitas grew from an isolated settlement into a thriving community. So let's go ahead and start with the oldest, El Camino Real. Long before there was anything even called El Camino Real, indigenous people had already shaped the landscape. For generations, native communities, especially the Kumeyaay, created paths for settlements, hunting, gathering, visiting neighbors. These paths were the first transportation network in California. When Spanish missionaries arrived in the 1600s, they didn't invent new routes. They followed these indigenous paths. This photograph shows a remnant of El Camino Real in Baja, California, close to what it must have looked like in the 1700s. Along the Pacific coast, Jesuit priests and their military escorts widened existing trails so horses and carts could travel between the different missions in Baja California. When the Franciscans replaced the Jesuits, the same idea moved north. El Camino Real followed Kumeyaay and other indigenous paths through what we now call San Diego County. We usually mark the El Camino Real of Alta California, starting to become a true horse and carriage road in 1776, when the Franciscans began moving north from San Diego to establish Mission San Juan Capistrano. Then something interesting happened. 12 years after Mexico gained independence from Spain in 1821, the lands were technically returned to the indigenous people. Who would have known? But only if they lived in pueblos. But most didn't want to abandon their traditional way of life, so they returned both physically and metaphorically to their older paths. And for a time, segments of El Camino Real as a road in San Diego County almost disappeared. But throughout the 19th century, whatever El Camino Real looked like, it was often the main road through California. And it went where the railroad did not. Wagon trains, stagecoaches, soldiers, traders, everyone used it, despite the rocks and the dust and the mud. Towns grew wherever people stopped to rest, water animals, repair wagons, or have your car get towed by horses. There were no stop signs, no traffic lights, no asphalt, no cement. Here's an interesting fact. Before cars dominated the roads, it was bicyclists who started pushing for better roads. In the late 1880s, bicyclists were riding on muddy, rutted, dangerous dirt paths that could hardly even be called roads. Farmers soon joined in calling for better roads so they could get their crops to markets faster in all different kinds of weather. Together they organized what was called the Good Roads Movement. See, this is their publication from 1892, volume 1, and they argued that roads should be improved and publicly maintained. They published guides, held rallies, and pressured local, state, and federal governments to take responsibility for the roads. Excuse me a moment. I'll let you think about that for a second. Before the 1920s, it would take almost, or thereabouts, 24 hours to go from San Diego to LA. That, you know, we have it easy, you have to admit. By the 1930s, dirt roads had become a dust menace. In 1934, the people of San Diego took action. They voted to create a county road commissioner to professionalize road maintenance. The polity voted how to transform how roads were managed, moving from ad hoc fixes to systematic road paving. A perfect example of communities making collective decisions to meet their shared needs. Today, the road commissioner is still in existence and is held by the director of public works. Around this time, El Camino became more than a road. It became a symbol. The mission bells on the curving poles that you see here today were basically early road signs, telling travelers where they were and where they're going. Excuse me. All right. El Camino was eventually paved and modernized, but not actually fully until the 1960s, even through Camp Pendleton. But most people only ever saw the road itself, not the decades of planning and funding and public decision-making underneath it. And as we talked about, this year marks the 250 years since it became a road, the same time the U.S. was declaring itself independent. So, what did El Camino Real do? It connected settlements, definitely. If El Camino Real was California's first road, Highway 101 was its first modern one. Here's a photo from 1928. Encinitas, as we talked about, in Encinitas, Highway 101 turns 100 years old. In 1926, our local coast officially became part of U.S. Highway 101, which is a federal highway stretching, as you know, from the Mexican border all the way up to Washington State. And that's literally Highway 101. Pretty cool. But Highway 101 mattered here long before it had a number. Even before it was paved, it made Encinitas viable. Commercially, agriculturally, recreationally, This was the road that connected the beach towns. More than the railroad, Highway 101 linked coastal communities and brought people here. Tourists and farmers, flower growers, and of course, surfers. The road didn't just serve the town, it created it. If you've ever looked through the Encinitas Historical Society archives, you can actually watch it happen. Motels appear, businesses cluster, beach culture takes shape right along Highway 101. There's one more thing Highway 101 shows us. Public roads don't just happen. They have to be collectively paid for and produced. At first, San Diego County funded the Encinitas portion of Highway 101. In 1923, California passed legislation creating its first gasoline tax, 2 cents per gallon, dedicated to road maintenance. 4 years later, in 1927, they raised it by another 1 penny to fund new road construction. No single town paying alone, just small contributions pooled together to make and maintain public roads that all the motorists could use. As traffic increased, the road slowly evolved. It was first paved in World War I, widened in the 20s and 30s. Overhead streetlights arrived in 1926, and Encinitas didn't get its first traffic signals until 1948. After 8 years of local campaigning, apology, talking about it. For decades, Highway 101 was the main north-south route, which connected nearly every coastal town, from Tijuana to Canada. So if El Camino Real connected settlements, then Highway 101 connected economies. And we continue on. Soon, even Highway 101 wasn't enough. As cars multiplied, road building had to scale up. Southern California was growing fast. Cars were multiplying. Regional travel demanded something bigger. That's when Interstate 5 entered the picture. Interstate 5 was built for speed, faster regional travel, economic growth, and long-distance movement. But where to put it was deeply controversial, as June had indicated. This was fascinating when I found it out. The head of California's State Division of Highways, a man named Wallace, had a vision to build his freeway on the coast. That's what he wanted. And it was going to go right where 101 was. Right through Encinitas, Solana Beach, Del Mar, Carlsbad, everybody. And the locals thought it would just annihilate our towns. I mean, this is impossible. You can't do this. So the residents organized. And they formed the Highway Protective Association, traveled to Sacramento, and pushed back. Of course, there were disagreements, debates, advocacy, and ultimately, citizens' activity resulted in decisions, voting by elected officials. The Encinitas Historical Society preserves the meeting notes and the letters and the materials from this period, so we can see how ordinary residents influenced a massive public decision. Because of these disagreements and differing opinions, the freeway was delayed for 10 years. So it takes some time, but it's worth it, right? And when Wallace finally retired, a new engineer came, and he actually listened. And the freeway, Highway 5, was built a mile inland instead. And here we have the photo of the ribbon-cutting ceremony in 1965. Looked a lot different. When Interstate 5 was constructed in the 1960s and 70s, it did bring faster access, but also new problems. It split neighborhoods, creating physical barriers between East and West Encinitas, and it sparked real concern. Those conflicts didn't disappear, but they were worked through. Bridges, underpasses, and local input helped reconnect what the freeway divided. Santa Fe Drive here is a good example. Instead of letting the freeway permanently divide the city, underpasses like this one kept neighborhoods, schools, and services connected. The mosaics that you see here underneath Santa Fe, created by dozens of local artists, ended up turning a transportation structure into a civic space. Another collectively financed public good, public art, and the Encinitas Historical Society has a lot about public art. That's very exciting and coming up anew. Interstate 5 shows us something important about public goods. They reflect choices. And those choices come out of disagreements, conflict, compromise, and finally, collective choice. And those choices didn't stop at public meetings. They went all the way to Washington. As it says here, Interstate 5 exists because of voting. People here and all over the country voted for the representatives in the US Congress. And in 1956, those very Congress people that you voted for, they voted for the interstate highway system into existence. And I-5 is just part of that national interstate system. And you reiterate it again, the bullet points below, just to drive it home. Well, we have El Camino connecting settlements, Highway 1 connecting economies, and Interstate 5 connected regions. So up till now, we've talked about road building historically. Now let's talk about how the roads are financed. Here's what's most important to notice here. Gas taxes make up almost half, and this is from last year. Both California and Encinitas. And it didn't always used to be like that. It used to make up 100%. Gas tax was 100% of all the roads. But now there's so many people and so many roads, and the gas tax doesn't nearly pay for it. So then there came some other taxes and whatnot. But the principles don't change, right? It's all collectively funded. And one thing I found was interesting is a local sales tax. So here in San Diego, the county decided to charge an extra, up to 1/4 or 0.5% in sales tax that goes towards the maintenance of our roads. So, what do you think the future of road funding is now? Well, as I mentioned, almost half of it comes from the gas and diesel tax, but that was built for an oil-powered world. As cars go electric, that starts to disappear, but those people are still using the road. So here's a question for you. If most cars become electric, what happens to road funding? And this isn't a theoretical problem. States, including California, are already discussing what comes next. These are the real options on the tables. These aren't ideas I made up. They're being studied and debated by state legislators, transportation agencies like Caltrans, and policy researchers and pilot programs. The three are mileage-based road usage fees, higher registration fees for electric vehicles, and or toll roads in certain corridors. Now, what I'm going to do is ask you to vote. Pretend this is a referendum. You can only vote for one. So if you would raise your hand if you would vote for A.
All right. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Going. 4 for A.
All right. Please raise your hand if you vote for B.
B. Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh, these are not EV drivers.
Can't afford the car.
Ongoing. And then lastly, for C.
Well, I think we know who the winner is.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, do we happen to have a volunteer that maybe would like to explain briefly why they chose A? Say no.
Chose A.
Number A? Yes, dear.
Mileage-based road usage fees just seems the most fair, because if you're driving on it, you're paying for it. If you're not driving on it, you don't pay for it. Making the EV people pay more, we already pay more, obviously I have an EV. We already pay more registration fees, so we're gonna be paying extra, that doesn't make sense to me. And then toll roads, if I never go on those toll roads, it doesn't feel like I would be paying for much, so that's why I chose them.
Thank you. Would anybody like to volunteer for B?
But there's another A.
Is there another A?
I just had a question. Honestly, to me, it feels most fair. If we're going to choose A, we should have to have the countrywide, because otherwise, if you're going some states and you go on a statewide countrywide road trip, then, like my mom mentioned it,
No.
and
Yeah.
then if it isn't countrywide, then some people are getting to drive in California for free, and other people are from California are driving cross country to go visit relatives, and they pay for it.
Well, we
Yeah.
actually have mileage, no, it's not mileage based, never mind, I'll take that back, never mind.
But I know on the East Coast, they have, they'll have freeways.
Yeah, that totally.
Yeah, they have toll roads. Would anybody like to explain why they chose B? Yes.
Well, mileage-based roads would be a good idea. Unfortunately, it would be difficult to incorporate. How would you decide how far a person has gone using roads? While EV registration is in fact something that's done directly with connecting to the government, ensuring that it is in fact paid out. Sure, we already paid high and now it's going to get higher. However, we do need to do our share to ensure that the roads are well completed and efficiently used.
Thank you. And how about C? Yes.
I feel that toll roads feel the most rewarding because you choose to take the toll roads rather than, say, taking a back route and take twice the time. That's something that you can make a personal choice, and you can, like when you buy gas, that's because you bought a car that has a lower gas mileage. So you're paying more because you chose that car, and that's worth it to you. Whereas something like mileage fees or EV registration charges, those are imposed on you. Whereas with tolls, you make the choice to do it.
Your choice is to go fast and pay a toll or go slow on the side roads.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, this is just a classroom exercise,
There's
but,
another one over there.
yes, sorry.
I just feel like if we're not gonna look into like some kind of income-based system, then this is really unfair to, I feel like, people in lower socioeconomic status. Of a lower socioeconomic status, because like mileage-based, they may have to drive more commuting in between jobs, things like this, you know, childcare. And then EV registration fees, it's like a lot of them aren't gonna have EV vehicles, so they're paying the high gas prices. So that registration, that's a premium on people who can afford those, so that's okay. But then the toll roads in certain places, you can place them in certain places, but that's still telling people of, you know, lower means that you can't go the expressway, you can't go the faster way, the better way, because you don't have the money to pay. And I think that anything that doesn't look at like the income of the drivers in the situation and payment that's equity based, then I think it's all just going to benefit people. That's all it is.
So you're saying all three of them are unfair to low-income people?
I think we can make an argument that all three are.
So
But I don't know
mean,
if they are.
This is really gonna happen. I mean, if we get into EVs in this country to a great extent eventually, which probably is going to happen, what do you do?
What do you do with the money?
What do you do about, well, with the EVs, when EVs become the, let's say, the majority of vehicles on the road, and there's no more gas tax to maintain the roads, how are you gonna maintain the roads or build new roads?
Right. Yeah, definitely not in my job description.
It's not
but I'm just here saying what I'm thinking in my head now.
You know, I agree with you. I mean, I think they're all unfair too.
Yeah.
But, you know, so is there some other way to raise money collectively to keep roads, you know, to avoid A, B, and C? I don't know, anybody else have thoughts?
That actually was a really good point. Like, it does disproportionately affect people with lower incomes because it's a higher percentage of their income. But, like, kind of everything will. Like, there's not really an option that doesn't, especially because likely the gas tax will be more over time than a higher EV registration fee would be. So still, the people that can't afford to buy an EV are getting affected. But the reason why I like toll roads is that not only is there an option for if you can't afford it, but also it can be used as a buffer on high traffic roads so that to reduce the traffic, or we could have just tolls for certain times or like weekends or something like that.
Just to remind her that distributing traffic also means traffic goes into neighborhoods and alternate places. You're spreading out the issue, not exactly resolving it technically.
Yeah. See, this is the real world. We talk together collectively, yes.
There's the
Okay, so I guess my conclusion that I've come to so far is that if we did do taxes based on mileage or registration fees for EVs, then there probably would be something with the government to make it feel more fair for people with lower income and higher income, where people with lower income would get like a rebate on their taxes for paying for their EV registration or something like that to help it make less of an oomph in their budget.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, all these are
But
perfectly
if you
valid.
say there probably would be some sort of a rebate for low-income people, there only will be such a thing if you vote for the representatives that will make that kind of thing happen.
Yeah.
Somebody who cares about the impact on the low-income population.
Yes, hello.
From a European perspective, all of these are false choices because you haven't considered another public good, which is public transit.
Hey, Dobro are good train tracks.
I
Yeah.
didn't do that.
We're a lot more
I've seen
spread
that.
out than Europe. Definitely, yes.
As someone who voted for B, I also think it's interesting, the conversation on whether or not we should be encouraging people to transition to EVs, right? If we care about another public good, our environmental sector, then a registration fee is unfair in the sense that it's punishing people for making a choice that maybe we want to encourage them to make.
Yeah. Yeah, and we read an article about the robocars, those are really having an impact too. And this deadheading period where they're driving around with nobody in the car because they're waiting for their next one or they're on the way to get charged or, you know, that happens like 67% of the time in San Francisco. So we're working through it, you know, I mean, we evolve together and we listen and make decisions. So remember, lastly, public goods are about our needs and what they reflect, and the historical society helps us remember how that happened. Thank you so much.